All right. Thank you for joining us today. We're here on the Mental Health Warriors. My program is Autism and Veterans Difference and Similarities. Today, I am grateful to have an amazing guest, Grayson Marshall Jr., the health evangelist, and multiple others. Actually, I'm going to let Grayson introduce himself because his his introduction is amazing, and I think y'all need to hear it from him because I know I would not do it justice. So, Grayson.
Appreciate it, Mary. Thank you so much for having me on. It's a kind of a flip of roles. I'm usually the one doing the interviewing, but now I'm getting interviewed. So to be on your show is a blessing and an honor, no doubt. My name is Grayson Marshall Jr. I'm the health evangelist. My mission is to see people as healthy as they can be in every aspect of life. I'm a former collegiate basketball player, former college Hall of Famer, an ACC legend, uh, serial business owner. Uh, Avid reader, physically focused on being the best version of myself I can be. I'm a worldwide coach. I'm a keynote speaker. I'm a six-time published author. So, having the opportunity here to talk about mental health and what it needs to be done to eradicate it or address it or really give people answers as to how to navigate it more successfully is the opportunity I have today, and I want to make the most of it.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I know I met Grayson in Jacksonville, Florida. And then I also actually met him here in Nebraska first. So I've shared the stage with Grayson, and it's truly a privilege and an honor to have you on my show. Um, so Grayson, I'm going to ask you a question as far as okay, you have autism within your family, and you've worked with countless veterans and stuff. So, in your mind, what do you see as some similarities with the crossover between autism and veterans?
Yeah, I think when you look at it, I think there's always a mindset of improving, right? So transition is a big issue for everybody when it comes down to doing the next thing. For folks in the autistic community, it's really about patience. It's really about understanding and developing new ways of learning and embracing information. How can I do it in a way that works best for me? The same thing with military transition. After I've been in structure for so long, how do I begin to do things differently? What do I have to implement into my life? What's been missing? What's been overlooked? Have I really been given enough or been equipped enough to do what it is that I need to do? So, in those cases, I think obviously there is a need for spending time with cultivating the new direction that they're going into and embracing where they are right now. But the biggest thing I think is patience, is not rushing the process.
Right, right, exactly. And as a former military personnel and autistic myself, I think a lot of people want to rush into everything, but not realize what kind of situation or um, mindset that they're in at that point. For me, I think the biggest thing is just being able to understand each person where they're at and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So for you, since you've worked with so many different people, what is the biggest thing that you see from people that they struggle with?
Mary, when I look at people, one of the biggest things is that I see their full wellness. They're embracing the totality of their wellness. And what I've shared with people over the years is this: is that I look at wellness in a five-fold opportunity. I look at it, five being the biblical number of grace. I look at the number five, and when I look at the five pillars of wellness, there's physical, financial, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And what I want people to understand is this: if they're not physically healthy, that begins the vicious cycle of interrupted challenge in their life. So, physically healthy, autistic people have literally subjectively um, a deficiency at times of oxygen to the brain. All those things are a part of it. That's a physical challenge. So, if there's a physical challenge, Mary, that usually results in a financial hardship, most people that deal with anything physically that's not complete, they usually have a financial price tag with it, and it's usually a hefty one. I don't care whether it's diabetes, I don't care whether it's high blood pressure, I don't care whether it's cancer, I don't care whether it's autism. If we're not physically healthy by choice or by chance, then there's a financial obligation that usually affects us. And when we're affected financially, Mary, the next two things that fully become challenged are emotional and our mental. So if I've got financial issues, mentally, I'm going to be in a challenging place. How do I get this done? How do I make this happen? Emotionally, I'm feeling about maybe why is this happening to me? Why is this going on in my life? Why am I faced with this? Why don't other people have to deal with this? Because of a physical challenge. And then the fifth thing that I get to here is spiritually. Once all these things become evident and apparent, I get to this last thing, and what I'm dealing with here is fear and doubt. And fear and doubt is going to produce anxiety and stress, and all those things are going to affect me physically. So the one thing that we have to do is we have to make a better attempt at becoming the best portion of ourselves physically. And if we have limitations, so be it. But am I maxing out my physicality? And I hate that word because it's not really a word, but am I maxing out the physical opportunity I have in my life? Am I eating right? Am I exercising right? Even with the shortcomings that I may have physically, I may have been born with them. They may have been acquired over time. Am I focused enough physically? Because if I am, the other four issues in my life begin to slowly dissipate, begin to slowly disappear, and now I can live a full, healthy life.
That's interesting because I know with my three sons that are on the spectrum, my oldest son eats really healthy and different stuff. You can see the difference in how each one of them reacts to just different stuff. Fortunately for us in our home, we don't do a whole lot of medications and stuff. So I think the biggest thing for us is just finding what works with the deficiencies and stuff.
Sure.
I know some of what you're talking about. I've done some research with that, and the biggest thing for me has been trying to find a focus
Mm-hmm.
and just being able to stay on, for me, on topic. And so something like this challenges me to stay on topic, and it teaches me. And it's definitely something I've done my research on, and something more you and I can discuss obviously at a later time. But another thing that for me is folks that are seeking help and trying to find the one person that believes in them. I think is a struggle for most parents, because in the autistic community and in the veterans community, people like the VA say they listen, but do they really truly listen to what your heart has to offer? So I think being the person that I am, I want to help everybody, but you have to specify. And I think in the long run, having somebody like myself or yourself that walks side by side with people and shows them how, and it has to be willingness on both sides there. So,
Mary, I think that too, when you talk about that camaraderie and that teamwork, walking beside somebody, I think as a coach, that's what I've always done. I think the reason I've been as successful as I've been is because I don't let anybody walk it by themselves. And I'm not here to enable you, and I'm definitely not here to deal with an entitled mindset. But what I am willing to do is I'm saying, if this is what you want, then you put forth the effort, and I'll walk through with you. What I teach people is to not to need me, but be there when they do. And I think that's the true essence of empowerment and leadership. Can you teach them to be better than you? Can you teach them not to need you? But can you also be there when they do need something, to provide that support, that encouragement, that confidence, that pat on the back, or the tough love that needs to happen at that point? But be able to do that with them so that they know they're not walking that thing alone.
yeah, it's a lonely path when you walk by yourself, that's for sure. But tell me a little bit more about your faith. And I know I've watched many of your programs, and I'm try to be up every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to watch. But as far as that goes, tell me how you reach people to understand that your faith, regardless of where it comes from, is something that you should trust more.
Sure. Well, I think, for me, faith is the foundational um, building blocks of who I am and how I live. Um, I'm a biblical based faith person. I'm not religious. I'll never do religion when it comes down to it, but I do have faith. And faith is a principle that works. I think we live life based on principles, and there's some non negotiated principles, and it doesn't matter who you are. Gravity is going to work, Mary, regardless of whether you believe in God or not. It's just a principle that's going to work. The law of reciprocity, that which a man soweth, that shall he also reap. That's the law of reciprocity. It's going to work anyway. There are principles that are alive in our lives that if we adhere to those principles, we live a different life. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So for me, faith is how I walk out every single day. Now, I walk out faith, Mary, by establishing an understanding of first natural, then spiritual. I deal with everything naturally first. So when I look at things like faith, faith seems to be a waning thing at time because we've been trained to evaluate our lives based on outcomes. We're an outcome-based society. So we literally look at what we do and we either engage, disengage, begin, or stop. We do all these things based on what we are forecasting or projecting as the outcome. And we really don't want to engage in things that we can't foretell the future. However, faith doesn't work that way. So what I've been able to do is I've been able to take the tendency of man's mindset and give them a new perspective on how to apply faith. And here's how. There's a verse of scripture in the Bible, Mary. It's Romans 8:28. And it says that all things work together for the good, for them that love God and those that are called according to his purpose. So it says all things. Now, it doesn't say a few things. It doesn't say some things. It doesn't say a couple things. It says all things. So here's what that did for me a long time ago. When I realized that everything was working out for my good, was going to work out for my good, I was able to remove the dependency on outcomes and live a different life. See, when I don't have to worry about whether my decision was right or wrong or good or bad, then I'm more free, Mary, to make the next choice. I'm more free to walk by faith because it's not determined by what I see. It's not determined by what comes from that. So when I'm able to do that, now I can live a life that's truly based on me being free, thinking for myself, and living a full and complete life. So when I look at the things that I choose to do, it's all working for my good. So it doesn't matter how it looks at the present time. Doing that consciously and then letting that sit in my subconscious allows me to walk by faith every day.
Yeah, I love that. I know you and I've talked about this before, but I'm a type of person that sees the big picture and I work backwards.
Mm-hmm.
I get a lot of people that kind of giggle a bit. For me, that's what works. Can you, when you work in your, work in your business and stuff, you start them at ground level and work them up. And so I guess for me, for my mental, I'm a visual person. So when you start, like when you were doing our coaching and stuff, how do you take somebody that's maybe autistic or a veteran that's dealing with different, how do you walk them through a process like that?
Well, here's the deal. First thing you said it earlier, Mary, understanding where they are at the time, right? And so the first thing is to assess where they really are. Second thing is to assess what they really want to get done. See, here's the difference in the coaching, the compliment, and the empowerment that I want to give the folks that I work with. What is it that you want to do? See, most people come looking for coaches, Mary, and they come looking for coaches to tell them what to do. I'm completely different. Or they come to a coach who already has a pre-described plan for them, and all they're doing is telling them, here's my 12-week plan. Well, here's my challenge with that. Mary may not need what Sally needs for those 12 weeks. So if I'm just force feeding Mary Sally's program, then Mary's not getting what Mary needs. I need to know where Mary is. So let's take Mary from where she is right now and move her to where she wants to be, because Mary could be light years ahead of Susie. So I have to understand that. And my conversation is truly, Mary, where do you want to go? And then it's how quickly or how expeditiously you want to move forward. Some people, Mary, are very, very conscious about how fast they go and how fast they move. You, on the other hand, you have big picture and you take big picture in front and back. So it's not wrong to grab somebody like you and say, what is it that you really want to do? And let's look at this big thing and then bring it back down to where first things first. I think that becomes the biggest part of how you can see. Adam says what works for someone may not work for someone else, right? That's the truth. And that's what I mean. But I think, Adam, you know what? I think that people, especially in coaching circles, especially buy my program, do my program, they already have the program set up for people, and the person might not need it or might not work for them. You know, Mary, for years I coached basketball, and everybody that came in the gym had a different skill set. I had to work with where the kids were and where they wanted to go. The other thing is that how I interacted with every player was different. There were some kids I could get on them hard and it would improve their game. There were other kids I had to pat on the back, put my arm around them, and that would improve their game. But it truly takes someone who wants the best for the other person. A lot of coaching programs only want their program to be featured. I want what's best for Mary. So let's figure out what works best for Mary, because Mary's learning style could be auditory and not kinesthetic. So Mary likes to hear more. Somebody else may be kinesthetic. Putting their hands on it may be what they do, and they don't do very well listening or writing. It just depends. So I think you have to take that time and the willingness to assess, okay, let me be for the other person. Let me find out what works for them. And when I find that out, now I can literally put them in a position to win, because that's ultimately where you want to be.
Awesome. I like that. And yes, I played a lot of basketball, so I need a little extra help some days, but most days I was pretty good. When you raised with three brothers, that's how life goes, you know. I was also one of those that could kick a 45-yard field goal. I felt pretty proud of myself. So I have one of my questions is, I really wanted to ask you this because I don't necessarily know the answer. You know, we all are all tied up in opinions. And so I've learned a lot from you as far as opinions should not matter to me, but how do you talk to somebody where opinion has really just drugged them down to that's all they think about?
You know, Mary, I think that one of the things they have to really figure out is that conversation and commentary, where it hits in their life. Where did it come from? Where does it feel the most? Where does the emotion resonate? What I tend to do with people is I become the empowering side of what they don't get. He who counsels with himself is unwise. When you start talking to yourself, it's kind of hard to have a real balanced opinion, because it's you talking to you. So for me, it's really me having a conversation about what it is they're dealing with. So here's what you're dealing with. How does it make you feel? And why does it make you feel that way? We live in a world where we are so tied to emotion that emotion dictates almost every one of our behaviors. And we have to get people away from leading with emotion. Critical thinking is totally void when emotion is driving the car. So I get people to step away from their emotion for a minute, and let's talk about it candidly. Remove the emotion off the table. Let's talk about it. And once they start talking about it, and once they have someone that they can actually voice it to, have a dialogue or conversation without judgment, it's a different story. What's usually bothering them is someone else's opinion. And what's usually bothering them is somebody else's expectation. And I've shared this before. Expectation is the happiness killer. So when we really understand that people are dealing with certain things, we've been trained that the opinion of others reflects on our future. How they see us may determine how much money I make. How they see us may determine on what promotion I get. So we really are literally trained into pleasing other folks. The one thing that we don't do is really learn how to satisfy ourselves. And so that's what I really talk to them about, literally building up them, building up the best them they can be, so that they can literally drown out the narrative that's coming from someone who's got a different agenda than the one that's best for them.
Nice, nice. I know I often think of when I hear different people speak, and yourself as well, a lot of people use that look in the mirror image, and know that you're the one that's in control of everything that you do. And outward influences really shouldn't matter. The biggest thing for me is there are days where we fight with the depression mode, or for me, some of it's been family oriented, and with the workload there, each individual step is cause for a new celebration. So if I have somebody who's fighting depression and I can't reach them, how would you, let's say, go about working through something like that? I mean, a lot of people aren't real talkative when it comes to depression and anxiety. So how would you work through that?
Well, I have a conversation about the depression. Depression usually, Mary, is a result of an outcome that wasn't favorable. It's usually because of something that didn't work out. It's usually something that didn't go their way. And that's why I said early on, what I've really learned to do and what I really help people do is not focus on outcomes. If you're not focused on the outcome, you really don't have an emotional tie to it. And I've told you this before. One of the things that you can do right now to change your life is number one, have no emotional attachment to any outcome. And number two is no time frame for things to happen. When we have an emotional attachment to it, that's a result of depression. That's a result of not feeling good, low self-worth, self-esteem issues. But if we really understand, and I have the conversation that if you remove the outcomes, if you remove the pressure of the outcomes, then you remove the emotion tied to them. You remove the emotional attachment. That doesn't mean you don't have feelings. You remove the emotional attachment from the outcome. And when I again, this is, for me, it's simple and it's simple to teach. If you do not grade or rate what has happening or has happened, it's so much easier to do. But we have this expectation we feel like we have to live up to. Some self-imposed, other externally forced. And we have this, I got to do this, I have to perform this way. Everything depends on this. And this is how we live. So we live in this emotionally caught up place that doesn't allow us to function at our fullest. When you don't have a regard for that, then you can function in your fullest. If you're worried about striking out, I can guarantee you're going to strike out, Mary. If you're worried about missing that jump shot, I can guarantee you're going to miss it. But when you don't worry about it, and you've gone and you've practiced the right way to shoot, and you've done it a bunch of times, you're more confident when you go to shoot it. It's not going to go in every time. The best shooter in the world, Steph Curry, misses 6 out of 10 shots. It's going to happen, but he doesn't go into shooting expecting to miss. He goes in anticipating it going in because I've done the work. And he's done the work on himself. Most of us, Mary, have not done the work on ourselves because we don't find ourselves as important because the world says everybody else is important. And if you focus on you, you're selfish. If you focus on you, you're self-absorbed. And that's not true. If I focus on me, I can become the best me so I can help and influence you to become the best you.
Yeah, that definitely, every morning I look in the mirror there, having you and many other coaches, instead of looking at their like, wow, I just woke up, and, it starts with a positive thought, and that's just it. The last few years in my family, we've rotated everything from being negative to being more positive. So now that I have a husband that's back in the workforce, he literally just came home this morning and was like, man, I just don't understand why people want to be negative and negative all the time. So, a lot of that has to do with his trauma that he's suffered in other workforces. I know trauma is a big thing that I have dealt with, and I still deal with my military status, with being autistic and stuff, because people are I'm going to say it, people are mean and they're cruel, and they judge you from the outward appearance and not know what's going on inside. So um, how do you deal with yourself or somebody else who has experienced massive trauma in their life?
Mhm. The biggest thing that I've learned when it comes to trauma is own it. Most people want to explain it and dismiss it. Most people want to sometimes ignore it. What I've learned to do is own it. And trauma can be at small levels or devastating levels. If I own it, now no one can ever use it against me. If I own it and I take responsibility for it, and again, you may not have initiated it. There could have been some sexual trauma that you had nothing to do with. You didn't engage, you didn't entertain, but it happened. Well, at the end of the day, most people try to forget that it happened and then forget, and you cannot trick your subconscious into doing that. You're better off facing it. This happened, but it's not going to define me. This happened, but it's not going to get the best of me. You have to now become consciously committed to doing that next thing to make yourself that much better. So we're dealing with trauma, PTSD, all those other things. Those are emotions that are tied to an event. Most people who come back from the military, I've worked with a bunch of them, they want to forget what happened, but they can't. They want to, they're trying to put it behind them, but they can't. Your brain doesn't work that way. What you got to do is you got to own it for what it is. This is what happened at that point in my life. This is what happened then. It's not living present moment. So one of the keys in my book that I talk about is living in the present moment. Going back to revisit something, you bring every emotion that goes along with it. But when you live in the present moment, again, you're not trying to pretend it didn't happen, but you're owning what happened. So if I'm a person in the military, and let's say I engaged in fighting that resulted in people's deaths, or there were some EIDs that were close to me that friends lost, I chose to be in the military. That was the decision I made. So I've got to own that. In doing so, these are the things that were potentially about to happen. Some experience it, some don't. I experienced it. I've got to own it. But it was then, it's not now. And so there's a true conscious decision that it's not going to beat me. And if one person can overcome PTSD, then it can be overcome. And so it's just a matter of how much of that you're willing to consciously commit to moving beyond it and really living in the present moment. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of those things play on people's lives for a long time, dreams and all those things. I mean, that's just reality, but you have to consciously, the Bible talks about it in this way. It says casting down every thought and bringing it into the captivity and knowledge and obedience of Christ. You have to really do that. It's a conscious effort. Just like you chose to engage, you have to choose how you literally let that affect you. And some people do it well. Some people it takes longer. Some people never win at that. And that's just like anything else in life. But I would encourage them, Mary, that they can get it done. I would encourage them that life is better on the other side. And I would encourage them to practice living in the present moment.
It's kind of almost like retraining your brain. I mean, literally, you have to dig into your subconscious, correct?
No doubt. No doubt. And you have to speak the new thing that you want, but you have to practice it. Jack Canfield talked about this one time. He talked about the power of the subconscious mind. And he said, imagine two sets of horses. He said, you got 95 horses pulling this way, and you got 5 horses pulling that way. He said, which set of horses are going to win every time? The 95 set of horses. The 95 horses are going to win every time. They're stronger than the 5. Yet everything we do in life, we focus on these 5 horses. This is where emotion is. This is where church is. This is where counseling is. All this is over here in my. This is where motivational seminars are. All this on this 5. This part, this subconscious part, really starts here. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. The subconscious part starts here. So here's where we have to get vulnerable. Here's where we have to get authentic. Here's where we have to get transparent. Once we can do that, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Once my heart becomes committed to the new me, once my heart becomes conditioned to the new present place I want to live, my mind follows. But if I hold that in my heart, then my mind will always mirror what I hold in my heart.
I like that. I like that. I know one of my things is, I've always learned to practice the pause, because, you have those people that are going to trigger you and do that. It was something that I believe I shared in Jacksonville was, you think it in your head, you tell it to your heart, and then that gives you a few extra seconds. Then you can voice what you're thinking or how you're feeling at that point. It gives you that extra moment to express it in a positive manner, because we know where negativity goes as far as that goes.
The Bible says, Mary, out of the heart the mouth speaks.
Yes, indeed it does. So what else do? You, I noticed you have a Facebook page on health evangelism. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So health evangelism is something that's really a passion of mine. And if I look at it from an evangelist standpoint, evangelists were people who went around sharing the truth. They were celebrating truth. So we celebrate the truth about health. We talk to people literally on how to heal themselves. We talk to them about how the body works. We talk to them about what's actually going on with most people and why most people are struggling at some area in their lives. So health evangelism is just about being able to share information. We talk about the things that are keeping people from being the best version of their healthy selves. We're not talking about becoming a fitness model. We're not talking about being muscles McGurk. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about literally giving your body what it needs, especially at the cellular level, because we are about the source and not the symptoms. So everything that we do is really focusing on the source. What's the source of the body? What are the main areas that need to be addressed? And obviously, the source of the body is obviously in the cell. That's where everything originates, at the cellular level. So what we do is we take the time to really deal with everything at the cellular level. We talk to people about how it works, why it works. We talked about the consumptions in the world and how to mitigate those in your own body. And what we know is that if you treat the source and not the symptoms, the body can heal itself. And that's what we're about. So we're constantly doing that. I've got a new product that's going to be on the marketplace called Cell Power Sport that we're really focused on athletes and cells. But we have products right now that really deal with people's ability to get M nutrients, mitochondrial nutrients, to the cell. And we get the cell to produce ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And when those are produced at the right levels, the body heals itself. So health evangelism for me is just really around, Mary, going around talking to people about things that they can do to be helping. We do it all over the world. So I get a chance to come in and I get a chance to speak on all those things and offer them some sort of simple solutions that make sense to them, that are tested and proven over time, that most people really embrace after we come and share. And it's really amazing. So that's what health evangelism is.
Nice. I appreciate that, because I'm a researcher, and I'm definitely in on that. Just trying to convince a couple folks here to go with me, because it's one of those things where you try new things in a family of autistic people, and they're like, first thing they do is they do that fear change thing. But
right.
we'll get them sold on it here in the house. So,
well, Mary, I think that the one thing that we found is that at the cellular level, the cells require certain things for sustenance. And the way the makeup of the nutritional requirements of the cell is that 10% is food and water, 90% is oxygen. The reason most people are suffering the way that they are with challenges because they're not getting enough oxygen to the cells. Your larger muscles are what's gonna produce ATP. And when the ATP is not being produced, I have a problem. So if I'm not getting oxygen from the lungs to the muscles and getting everything that's nutritionally required for the body to work the way that it should, then we have these challenges. So all the symptoms of the cell not being healthy, we're familiar with. So the cell not being healthy is called cellular energy deficiency. And when I use the analogy, I use the analogy of a cell phone. Everybody has a cell phone or know what a cell phone is. And as you can see, mine is charging right now, right? Now, if I take the charger off, I can use the phone. And the phone works fine. But as I begin to open up apps, the more apps that are running, Mary, the more energy is drained from the battery. So I can close the apps to save the battery. Well, your body kind of works the same way. You and I, we plug in every night, which is called our sleep, and wake up the next morning, and all these apps are running. I've got a brain app running. I've got a circulation app running. I've got a heart app running. I got a liver app running. I got a pancreas app running. I got a kidney app running. All these apps are running at the same time. Here's the thing, I can't turn them off. So if I can't turn them off or close them down, if I'm not fully charged, then as the battery drains quicker, the battery will go into low power mode. Why? It goes into conserving energy. Well, in the body, when it does that, one of the processes that's working has to slow down, has to compromise. So digestion is the greatest power drain in the body. So after you eat, if you're not taking in enough energy to compensate what is being used by digestion, you're going to be lethargic. You're going to be tired, and everything else is going to suffer. So the results of CED are things like type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, high blood pressure, lack of sleep, autoimmune disorders. All these things are a result of cellular energy deficiency. So what we focus on is empowering the cell, engaging the cell so that it can function at its maximum optimized place. And when we do that, we reduce disease.
Nice. Yeah. Yes. Yes, indeed. It's kind of like when you have that brain fog, you know you should be doing something a lot different, and definitely something to look into for the viewers that are watching, and just anybody that watched the replay later. If you want to get in touch with Grayson, I'll reshare his information, or he can reshare his information. But I definitely appreciate the time that you've given me today. I know you're a busy gentleman, and I'm so grateful for our friendship and just the opportunities that you've given me, and then also my gentleman that has allowed me to start my program. So Grayson's seeing me in a different atmosphere. So for me, it's been one step at a time, and again, just being able to host somebody that I've actually sat under his coaching. It's been a true privilege and a pleasure to have you on today, Grayson. Any parting words?
You keep doing what you're doing. We're so proud of you. You are a stalwart in your commitment to your family, to your mission, to rendering people more aware of autism, rendering people aware of more mental health issues, and continue to champion the cause for solutions. I think oftentimes, Mary, we want to just continue to talk about the problem. And when you talk about the problem, you get more of the problem. But you are one that's going after the solutions. You're going to model what you expect people to do. You're going to model what you think needs to be done. And you're going to be an example of what can be done. And just like anything else, Roger Bannister, most people don't know who Roger Bannister was, but Roger Bannister was the first man that broke the 4-minute mile. Before Roger broke the 4-minute mile, it was said it could not be done. In the same year that Roger broke it, subsequently, dozens of people, literally that same year, broke the 4-minute mile. Why? Because somebody proved it could be done. Mary, NixonHahn, you're proving that it can be done. You're proving that people can do it. willingly, successfully, and with a spirit of excellence. So I'm just happy to be able to be a part of watching you do it. Uh, Whenever you ask me to do anything, if it's at all possible, I will make it happen. And that's what I think true relationships are. And I'm happy to be in one with you.
Well, nice. And again, I'm just grateful. Opportunities are blessings to those of us, I guess, with the humble leadership like I have. So I appreciate your time, Grayson. And if I'm gonna go ahead and close out the show, give me a minute and I'll be right with you.
You got it.
Mm-hmm.